I'm so excited to be here. We're going to continue the conversation that Nick was just having. We're going to introduce DeltaTerra Capital founder and CEO, David Burt. I will tell the audience at the end the very embarrassing thing I said to you when I first saw you today. But they'll have to wait for that. You say that the climate crisis with respect to the economy, it's not something happening down the line, happening right now. Why?
Yeah, that's correct. I think there's a major paradigm shift happening in real estate markets right now. And that's probably the biggest parallel with like the 2008 crisis. An asset bubble has accumulated.
And just for people who don't know, that's kind of your claim to fame. You called the 2008 crisis before many other people did.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's sort of my job as a professional investor to identify mispricing issues in capital markets and trade on them, and that was certainly one of the biggest ones I looked at in my career.
Mm-hmm. And so the difference between what we're seeing now and the 2008 crisis, you told me backstage, it's not as big.
Yeah, you know, it's more regionally regional centric. So the subprime, the withdrawal of subprime mortgage lending across the country was felt kind of everywhere. Right. This is likely to be more acute, frankly, but only in the 20 to 25% of regions that are really having the liability of the properties in those markets change.
Okay. I think if you're talking to anyone on the street who's watching the financial markets right now, kind of hard to convince them there is a crisis underway. Stock markets are at all-time high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, it's kind of insidious. The most investors are empiricists by nature, so you want to backtest to sort of define what's happening. And what we're experiencing now is actually quite new. So I think investors are struggling to put all the pieces together. There's also a lot of incentives, misalignments in the capital markets that support some of the activities that are most exposed, like mortgage lending.
So where are investors pricing in the risk?
You know, they're starting to think about, insurers are starting to hike premiums. And some lenders are starting to think about increasing insurance requirements or being more careful about insurance mandates. I'd say those are the two sort of leading changes. Yeah.
Tell me how the crisis plays out from here. We're starting to see insurers hike premiums. Mm-hmm. What happens next?
Yeah, well, I would say this really started becoming apparent in markets maybe in 2022. You had two big changes in insurance schemes. One was the repricing of flood insurance by FEMA in 2021 called Risk Rating 2.0. The other was just the rapid withdrawal of private insurers from California, given the buildup in sort of mispriced wildfire liabilities. So I'd say that buildup has been happening for some time, but those two systems started to bring it into sort of the ethos of the markets, and you started to see supply build in 2023 in these markets that are most exposed to these changes, and then of course now property prices are tanking on the west coast of Florida, several other Gulf metros, Southern California.
When I listen to central bankers talk about the economic risks at hand, there was a Fed official talking this morning. Her concern is about the labor market. Her concern a little bit is about inflation. You don't hear anything about climate change. That wasn't always the case. The Fed used to talk a little bit about the risks of climate change to the financial system, but now the political winds have shifted a bit, and it's not the case. So what should we be hearing in a perfect world from central bankers about this topic, and what role do they have to play here?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of ironic because if the central banks were really actually paying attention instead of being told not to about these changes and these risks in markets, in real estate markets in particular, which really, really affect homeowners and households, they would probably be more accommodative, which is exactly what the administration is trying to.
Wait, tell me
to
more
get
about
done.
that. Why? So be more accommodative, meaning that interest rates should be lower.
Yeah, I mean,
That is
if you have a looming economic crisis like this, then you want to stay ahead of that with rates, but they're not paying attention.
What would you tell Fed Chair Jerome Powell right now about this risk and what he's missing?
I think he should be focusing on the economies where home prices are falling, and you're already starting to see delinquencies rise, unemployment rise in those areas. So to sort of look away from the aggregate and start looking at the regions that are being most acutely impacted.
What are those regions?
Most of Florida, but particularly the west coast of Florida, the Mountain West, Southern California, all along the Gulf Coast, so Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. So there's quite a few regions there. I mean, you can keep expanding. That's the thing is there's also a lot of problems with inland flooding all through the Rockies. I'm from New England. We even had problems in Vermont recently. So it's pretty broad, but those are the places where it's furthest along in this cycle. I think we're probably 2 years into a 7 or 8 year repricing cycle.
Okay, so what happens at the 8th year?
I mean, hopefully at that point, homeowners, markets understand the ongoing liability that properties will need to bear as a result of these changes in the physical environment. I mean, these are physics. Like, the government can't actually change the laws of physics, no matter how much they move the deck chairs around. And so, yeah, I'd say by the end of that, hopefully there is a pretty stable place for where home prices have gone to and are now reflecting their true value given this new structural liability.
We haven't talked much about the banks, and obviously they were at the center of the 2008 financial crisis, but what is the risk to the banks here? Obviously they are the ones lending mortgages to homeowners. Is there a connection there?
Yeah, this is a short interview, so. I mean, it's really, the whole mortgage system has changed dramatically. So the banks aren't carrying a lot of the credit risk now. Those are mostly being borne by Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie.
They're getting them off their balance sheet.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they're making loans, they're originating, they're selling them. They're not really, there's really no risk incentive for them to adjust their practices because of that dynamic.
Okay. We just have a little over a minute left, and I just want to tell the audience something cool. We have to address it. So if you are a fan of the movie The Big Short, Brad Pitt played a character based on you. How many people can say Brad Pitt played a character based on themselves? That's very cool. But you were telling me you didn't actually get to meet Brad Pitt, unfortunately.
No,
You didn't do a character study.
And I want to say that he was a composite character,
Okay.
so probably more of his lines were Ben Hockett than me, but there were
He
definitely
was
a
quite
few.
grumpy, and you don't come off as very grumpy.
No, although I do like my natural escapes. Yeah, no, I think that what I was telling you before is I didn't even get to meet Michael Lewis, because when he called me to interview me,
Who wrote the book the movie is based on?
I made the mistake of asking my compliance department at the hedge fund I was working at.
Can I talk to Mike Lewis? Can I talk to Michael Lewis?
No way you're talking to that person while you work here.
We have a few seconds left. I want to ask you, the financial crisis of 2008 is getting further and further away. Why does the movie The Big Short still matter now in the context of what's going on right now? No crisis ever looks the same, but why do people need to understand the 2008 crisis?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some real close parallels. Again, it's about the presence of a significant real estate market bubble, and we saw what the fallout was from an economic perspective and for households broadly from the crisis, even though this is more regional, it's still something that's pretty terrible. And we should be prepared. We should be working on the pricing mechanisms that create like a gradual off-ramp rather than disorderly results like what we saw in 2008 and 9 through really 11.
Okay. David Burt, everyone, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Courtney.
That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.